The Da Vinci's Code is a novel written by Dan Brown and adapted as a movie by Ron Howard in 2006. The book, published in 2004, sold 80 million copies and is the second novel by Dan Brown, after Angels and Demons, questioning the Catholic Church's behavior. The author received many critics on the novel for the nature of the information in it. Among the many charges, there was having a Masonic inclination, basing on his words against the Opus Dei, only prelator of the Catholic Church. Copying a great part of the story from books and movies that already discussed these themes. Reason why Dan Brown changed the description of the novel from fantasy novel, which he chose exactly to avoid this kind of labels, to only novel as a challenge to his critics. The criticisms were not only addressed to the book. Actually, the director received, for his work, the nomination to Worst Director at Razzie Awards of 2006. The adventures of Robert Langdon and Sophie Neveu were inspired by people and events actually exist in the writer's life, along with legends and myths handed down from one generation to another. The main character, for example, takes John Langdon's last name, creator of the anagrams for Angels and Demons. Also, André Vernet, responsible at the Depository Bank of Zurich, is the homonymous of the author's French teacher during his school years. As an expert, thanks to his cryptography studies at the University of Seville, Dan Brown leads us in an adventure between France and England in search for the Holy Grail. The novel raises the curtain in Paris, where both the director and the writer introduce us to the central crime. The Albin monk, Silas, shoots the final gunshot inside the Louvre Museum. Then Dan Brown brings us in the hotel room of the main character, who, awakened by Lieutenant Collet, is brought to the crime scene in the museum. Ron Howard, instead, decides to give us a glimpse of the conference that Professor Robert Langdon should have hosted that night, and he sees Lieutenant Collet for the first time while he meets his fans, moment in which he is shown the picture of the murder of the curator of the museum, Jacques Saunière. Throughout the storytelling, Sophie has multiple flashbacks in which she remembers highlights of her childhood. One of these, that Ron Howard did not include in the film, is about the keystone. The little Princess Sophie, sniffing around her grandfather's office, found a box. Inside it, there was a key. Finally worked with the letters PS. In that moment, her grandpa kindly reproached her, explaining that PS stood for Princess Sophie, the nickname he gave her. But the truth was, as she would find out later that night, that those two letters meant Priory of Sion. The author included in the novel many references to mathematics, art, and history. The Fibonacci sequence, for example, in which every number is the sum between the previous two, and it is the sequence that Robert and Sophie used to find the cryptex. The Atbash cipher, in which the first letter of the alphabet is replaced with the last, the second with the penultimate, and so on, reversing the alphabetical order of the letters. Cipher used in the books to open the first cryptex. Or again, Professor Tibbing's analysis of the Da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper, in which he underlines the possibility that the person sitting on Jesus' left is Mary Magdalene, and on this matter, all the digression on the life of Jesus' wife, on his daughter, and on how the apostles blackened the identity of the woman to take all the power at the head of the church. Or the symbols recurring both in the book and in the film that indicate the male and the female, symbols that we find in our daily life more often than we think, often used by Leonardo in his works. The inconsistencies in the unfolding of the plot between the book and the film adaptation increase as we get closer to the truth. For reasons of time, director Howard had to eliminate one of the riddles left by Saunière in his quest for the Grail, facilitating the investigation of the trial. In the book, in fact, the cryptexes that Teabing, Langdon, and Sophie have to decode are two, and each one has clues related to it. While in the film, the director has decided to keep only the final and most important one of them, that refers to the tomb of a knight, Sir Isaac Newton. The biggest difference lies in the revelation of Sophie's true identity. We are in Scotland, in Roslin Chapel. In the director Howard's version, in entering the chapel, Sophie has a déjà vu and sees her parents again. A symbol on the door of a crypt, already present in the film, captures Robert's attention. The two of them walk into the crypt and find a trapdoor in the floor. There, where the Holy Grail, the tomb of Mary Magdalene, was supposed to be, is a rose, and all around it are shelves and shelves of information about the lives of her descendants. And it is there that Sophie discovers the truth, that she is the only remaining descendant of Jesus Christ. Dan Brown, on the other hand, gives us a more familiar perspective. As she enters the chapel, Sophie is charmed by the ceilings of the church that she remembers visiting with her grandfather as a child, and gets lost admiring them before leaving for the chapel keeper's house. In the official version, this is how Sophie finds her origins. She meets her grandmother and her brother, and they tell her the true story of her life. After the death of their parents, caused by a car accident, the two children were left with their grandparents, who, in order to keep them safe from the dangers of Saunière's important position within the Priory of Sion, decided to divide them so as not to draw too much attention towards them. Now, the information about the descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene is kept in secret, and Sophie has found out more about her family. What is missing? Mary Magdalene's tomb. The scene and the final chapter show us the exact location of the Holy Grail, from Sacré-Cœur, north across the Seine, and finally to the ancient Paris Observatory, the Earth's original prime meridian, the first zero longitude of the world, Paris' ancient rose line. The Holy Grail, 'neath ancient Roslin, waits.